be watching a year from now when they're taking this as a class. But we will take a couple months off of Wednesday activities so I can get my gardening done since we're in the summertime. And I'm dating it so they know if you're ever watching this later that this is in the summer. So we'll take a couple months off starting in September. But when we start up again, what I'm hoping to do, and I meant to mention this a couple of weeks ago, but I forgot, is that I don't want, since I won't have any confirmation class for another 3 years, we don't have any young kids here anymore. They're too young. So I don't want to just not do anything on Wednesday nights. So my suggestion is not every Wednesday night do this, but maybe either once a month or twice a month do a topical study. Because we do books of the Bible study on Sunday morning, but a topical study, like a more intense one on baptism, one on the Lord's Supper, one on end times, or one on just whatever practical stuff you might want to do too, or hot topics of the day kind of thing. So, but to do that, what I was going to do is, I was going to do one on baptism, one on the Lord's Supper anyway, but if you have an idea, let me know of a topic that you would like to discuss, and then we will do it. And I'm thinking maybe every 2 weeks, or like I said, maybe once a month, because I would like to, if it's going to be a topical, I might need more time to research. Okay, so, and I would like to do the research and not just put one together real fast. So it can be a more intense study. All right, does that make sense of what I'm looking to do? So if you can come up with ideas, if you want to come to these classes anymore, like we used to do the book of the month study when we read a book, and we quit that a long time ago. But this will be kind of replacing that, but not do it in the afternoon, just do it in the evening, except during Advent and Lent for a while, okay, until we run out of topics to do, which we'll see. So that's the plan. All right, so today is our lesson is on creation. And as we do this lesson, you'll probably find out that for us who obviously are not atheists and evolutionary believers, this is not going to be one of those topics that has hot debate to it. So it's more devotional for us in that sense, or in a way, more review for us. Now, again, if we were in a college setting where you have all these atheists around and all those who believe in evolution, I wouldn't be prepared to do that anyway, because I don't know that approach very well and how to argue against that. But we're going to do what Bible says about creation, okay? And more than just creation, it's also going to be the preservation. And then, because there's no other time in this whole series to do this, we'll do a little study at the very end of this on angels. Okay, because we could do a whole extensive study on angels at some point too, if that's you want to make a topical study of that. I can't do all that in this short amount of time, but we'll try to do a little bit on angels tonight as well. All right, so when we get to the doctrine of creation, obviously, you have to go to the beginning. If you want to know about creation, you got to go to the one who created it, and the one who then details for us how he did it without going into great detail. He doesn't explain all of that. But as we do this, what we're going to look at, and this is why I wrote this on the board to remind myself, is not that, and that's what Lily did. Okay, this is something, I just finished a sermon for August 4th, so that's also dating this now, and it's not this, but it's making us realize when we talk about the doctrine of creation, like I said, this is just old news for us, but hopefully we'll understand how precious this is for us. And in doing that, we'll do that by understanding that we are actually made for more. All right? So before we actually look at that then, I think let's do it this way. Instead of going to Genesis 1, go to John 6. John 6. Because this is actually going to be the text for the sermon here on August 4th. So I just finished it, so it's really fresh in my head. And this will be kind of the review of the sermon coming up. So if you show up for church on August 4th and you're like, I kind of remember hearing something about that, because I don't expect you to remember anything for another month and a half. but you might remember some of this. John 6, 22. Well, actually, we won't look at the whole section. We'll just look at we'll just look at verse 26. That'd be easier. Because I don't want to spend, obviously, this is more of an intro, and obviously you don't want to spend half of the class just on the intro. But it is this. And okay, the context here in John 6 is the feeding of the 5,000. You're very familiar with that, right? So I don't have to elaborate on that. Okay, so after the feeding of the 5,000, I'll have to fill you on the details now, because this part of John 6 is the next day. So the next day, Jesus has already crossed the Sea of Galilee to the other side. And how did he get to the other side, by the way? He walked on water. Okay, he walked on water to get to the other side. No one saw that but the disciples. So so leading right into this, the next day, the crowd that are still on the eastern side realize Jesus is gone, and it's like, well, where did he go? Because we saw the disciples get in the boat, and they left, but we didn't see Jesus get in the boat, so they don't know how he got there. But they assumed he's gone to the other side. So there happened to be boats that docked at the eastern side. They got in the boats, the crowd did, and they went to the western side of the sea, and there Jesus is. Okay, so then they go through this, how did you get here kind of thing, and he didn't tell me he walked on water. That's not the whole point. But it comes to this. It comes to this statement here. In verse 26, verse 25, when they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus answered. He didn't answer their question, by the way. He answered it with something else. I tell you the truth, you are looking for me, not because you saw miraculous signs, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. So in Jesus' view then, which he's going to be correct, obviously, why are they wanting Jesus? Yeah, another miracle of a meal. Really, what they wanted him for was keep our belly full, right? Keep our belly full. That's all we need you for in their view. And Jesus obviously is not happy about that when he says this, because if you read the rest of it, he's going on about that. So this is what it's going to be for this sermon on August 4th. It's going to be this. The title is this. All right. Man or beast? You heard the line, are you a man or a beast, right? Okay. All right. That's what Jesus is saying. Are you a man or a beast? Man means generic human being, okay? Are you a man or a beast? Can you figure out why that would be the... Exactly. Very good. Man is made for more. A beast is made for basic natural instincts. Fill my belly. Give me what I need to survive. That's all I care about. That's a beast. And Jesus is saying that's what you're acting like. You're acting like a beast. All you want is for me to satisfy your material needs, and you'll be happy. But you have been made for more. And I'm here to give you more. All you want is a handout, but I can give you so much more. All right? And so that's what we want to look at here. So I'm trying to, that's good enough. I don't have to elaborate on that. Because really that's going to be like the theme. I didn't think about that, and it's good that this happened to be the text I was studying when we got ready for this. Otherwise, I would have done this differently. But because when you look at the doctrine of creation, this is what we're going to find out, is that we are made for more than just this physical body and a physical creation. That's certainly part of it, but we certainly made for so much more. So now we go back. Now we go to what you have in the notes here. So we go to Genesis 1. And so as we go through this, have this thought in mind that we are made for more. All right. So now as we go through creation, I'm going to erase all this now. So as we go through it, you'll find something that maybe you never noticed this before. Maybe you have. And so I'm going to explain it anyway. God is a very orderly God, and we can see that when we look at creation, among other things, but certainly with creation. And so here's how we do this, okay? when we look at the 6 days of creation, we can see that really God has structured it in this way. And this is your columns here on in your notes there. I just didn't write dividing and wrote divide and fill. Okay, when he creates everything, he puts it in a specific order. So this is just your basic facts here. All right, so we won't read all of Genesis 1, that takes too long, but we'll kind of highlight how it goes. Okay, so in the beginning, he created the heavens and the earth. All right, so now if you understand what's going on here, at the very beginning, and when there was no time, he created time. All right, so when he does it, he creates everything at one moment. All right, so the way I teach this with the kids in junior confirmation class is think of it this way, because you can visualize doing this. Think of a kid playing with a big tub of Play-Doh. Okay, got that in your mind, all right? A kind of an older kid, not just a little kid, but older kid who really kind of knows what's going on. All right, so he has a big tub of Play-Doh. All right, so now God has made a big tub of Play-Doh. Okay, the kid can't make it, so it's already gotten. So he made it out of nothing. That's in the notes here. It says, creatio ex nihilo, creation from nothing. So when God created everything, at one point there was no thing. And then suddenly there's everything. So he creates the whole big tub. All right, so you got this picture of this kid now playing a big giant tub of Play-Doh. Now, this kid is a smart kid. He's a very organized kid. So in his mind, he has thought about what he's going to do with this tub of Play-Doh. So what he does is he takes the tub and he takes portions of it and he, pinches it off and he puts a pile there and a pile there and a pile there. In this case, it's going to be 3 piles. Puts a pile there. And then he'll go back and he'll take this pile and he'll start working with that pile. And he'll take this pile and start doing that, and this pile start doing that. That's what God does with creation. All right? And so here's how this works. So on day 1, it says, what did God do on day 1? I put this as a column here. And actually, it's going to be hard for you to see this, I know, because I don't have much space here. You put a dividing line here. There won't necessarily need to be a dividing on this side, but we're dividing, okay? So on day 1, what does he divide? Not heaven and earth, no. Yeah, so night and day or light and dark. So you can actually put day and night in there, the opposite order. In the Hebrew time, the day begins at night, not at day. Yes, that's why we don't call it. Yeah, they're just light and dark. So the mystery is, where does the light come from? Because there's no sun or stars that create light, and moon's a reflection. So there's nothing that is an object creating light that's burning. So we don't know where the light comes from on day 1, 2, and 3. We just know he creates light. He is light, but he doesn't create himself. So we don't know where the light comes from. We'll never know in this life, and there's no need to, because now the light comes from these sources. So, but what he does is he divides. All right, and he divides night and dark. Night and day, night and light, okay, or dark and light. So he divides that up. All right, now, when you look at this too, what you're going to get, and I'll put it down here, I call this, for the kids, I call it the funnel effect, okay? So think of a big giant funnel right here, okay? All right, just have that in mind. I'll explain that in a little bit. All right, so that's day 1. Now, on day 2, what does he divide? Louder. Oh, we're used to that.
Water and ground.
No. Not yet. Water and water. Not dry land yet. Day 2 is the water in the sky and the water on the earth. But the whole earth is covered with water. So this is the water in the water. So now, if you're really paying attention also, you notice that he narrowed everything down pretty dramatically now to planet Earth. And actually, there's a planet Earth at this point. We don't have sun, moon, and stars yet, but we do have a planet Earth. Okay? And so but now, somehow, it was like for that day, there was just water. So he has created water. Okay? But now he separates the water from the water. So we call it sky, and sea. Sky and sea, if you want to put it that way. So the water above and the water below. Okay, now day 3, so we'll just go through this quickly. Now on earth, he separates the land from the seas. Or he makes dry land appear. Okay? Now, this is the other thing here, okay? So if you're watching the kid playing with Play-Doh, you're seeing now he divided things up in his clumps. He took the 3 clumps out and he divided the clumps. And you still don't know what's going on, but you see he has something in mind. If you're trying to solve a mystery, it's like, I wonder what he's going to do with all that. You really still don't know. So as you're following this, you don't know, but you see that God is, each time he does something, it's getting narrower. Okay, so he went to the whole universe here on day 1. Day 2, he goes to planet Earth. And day 3, he goes to a specific part of planet Earth, not the sky anymore. Terra firma plus the water. Okay, so it's like he's getting narrower all the time. Why is he doing that? So that's like, okay, that you're trying to follow these clues. Got it? So now, and then he does one more thing on day 3, which is like a transition into day 4. All right, so I have to write it in here. I don't have enough space, so you have to write vegetation. Next to land, you write the word vegetation. And that will transition us into day 4, okay? Because what he's done now is he already filled the land with vegetation. So this actually doesn't correspond with day 4. It really goes to day 6, but it's just transitioning into filling. Okay, so he starts to fill the land. He fills it with vegetation. It's like, okay, now we got vegetation. What's going to be the purpose for that? We'll find out later. We won't figure it out. He'll just do it for us. We'll find out later. All right, so now we get back to day 4, and see these are in columns. That means day 4 corresponds to day 1. And 5 to 2 and 6 to 3. So if we're talking about way out here in outer space, what goes in outer space? If he's going to start filling that, yeah, sun, moon, and stars. Okay. Yeah.
What's all this stuff about all this about bringing forth vegetation, plants?
That's day 3.
That's still there.
Yeah. Well, look at it, verse 13. Well, yeah, and verse 13, and there was evening, there was morning, the 3rd day. Okay, and then verse 14, we're starting the 4th day. Okay? Sun, moon, and stars. Now, if you look closely at the text, there's a purpose for the sun, moon, and stars. More than one, of course. What is the purpose specifically as it says here? We know we can only exist now physically because the sun is in existence. But that's not the purpose for it that's stated here. It certainly is a purpose. The day. Right. And why are the stars there? Now go back to verse 14. You said the sun and the moon. That's really verse 15. Verse 14 is the stars. We may not realize that. I know. And let them serve as signs to mark in days and years. Okay, the days is the sun and moon. But how do we tell seasons? Stars, right? Back in the day when you didn't have calendars like we did, or sailors in the ocean, you learned to read the stars. And I don't know anything about that, but you know how the Big Dipper changes, right? Okay? And with the moon, you know a month has passed because what has happened to the moon? It's gone to full phases. Yeah, right. All right. So that's how the purpose then is now, to me this is fascinating because what it's now saying is that even though it started already here, now we're measuring time. We already have been here, of course, but now we know how to measure time by looking at creation. So it makes you already think, why does God want us to measure time? And this is cool because there's going to be the final day that will become the day that never ends. Okay, which is the new creation. Okay, after fall into sin and redemption and Christ returns in judgment, becomes what actually is called the 8th day. Okay. I don't know why I wrote the number 8 there, but it's the number 8, the 8th day. There's only 7 days in the week, but Christianity is always referred to the 8th day. The 8th day is the new creation. It's the day that dawns but never sets. Okay? And it's even actually fascinating because when you read the Easter accounts, it talks about the day, but it never talks about the night. It's like the day has started and it's never ending because now we're in the new life. The new life. And that's why also in the Old Testament, circumcision happened on the 8th day because it's like your new life started now on the 8th day. And this is interesting because some baptismal fonts, which the one in Houston is this way, it's not the one here, is 8-sided. Has a podium that's 4 sides for the world, but the top is 8 sides, which is very intentional because it's talking about the new life that we have in Christ. And the new life, we're born again, never to die, because we're buried with Christ in baptism, we rise to live a new life. So that's the 8th day. Now, I don't know why I got onto that now, but that was it was important, but I can't remember how I got there. So I'll go back to here. Okay, so, all right, so, because we're talking about counting. Okay, so now we start counting because God is saying there's going to, by implying that we're counting, he's saying that there's going to be a time when we will get to that one day where it enters into eternity. And when you read about that in the book of Revelation, when it talks about the new heavens, new earth, it says there's no night. In other words, it never ends. It's the day that begins and never ends. All right. So, but now we're in a time. We're on a timeline looking forward to that final moment. Okay, day 5 has to correspond to day 2. So if the water in above is the sky and this is the water below on earth, what goes in the sky and what goes in the water on earth? Birds and fish. All right. So that's pretty obvious, right? Now, honestly, there's no extreme significance about those as far as like the sun, moon, and stars was. He's just filling the sky and he's filling the water. Okay, so we'll get to day 6. What goes on the land other than vegetation? Animals. And where we got the seas covered, so we don't need to do that. So animals. All right? So, and then the only thing left to be created is man. All right. And it's when man is generic, because it's going to be male and female. It's going to say that at the end of male and female, he created them at the end of Genesis 1. So here's the idea. Now we're back to the funnel. So the idea of the funnel now is what comes last is man. Okay, right. Sideways is hard to do. Okay. Man is last. But you see why he's last? Because in reality, he's first. All of this was done. He created everything starting with that which is the most distant from us, way in outer space, billions of light years away. He started with that, but as he kept going, he kept narrowing it, so that it came down to us. So I call it, I just make this term up. I call it the funnel effect. Everything funnels down for us. Because why did God create creation? Just because he had nothing else to do, but for us. All right? He created it for us. So he created us last to show that we're really first. All right? He didn't create it for the angels. He created it for us. That's why we're made for more. So if you see this already, even though we're all talking about physical creation now, it's like God specifically had us in mind when he did everything. Which is also, again, why evolution is just so stupid. It's just, first of all, it's just wrong. It's not scientific. But it's so stupid because it totally devalues humanity. It just makes us part of a chain of random events that just randomly happened. And boom, here we are, but we have no reason to be here. But by looking at this, we realize we have a reason to be here. And the reason is given to us by God himself. So here, let's look at that now. When we look at now the creation of man, okay. So and that's the next page there says built with you in mind. I won't read all of that. That actually was what I was looking for. On the very first lesson, I talk about the anthropic principle and the cosmological principle. These are the quotations there. But so we'll skip over that because that was really back in lesson 1. And for the sake of time, we'll go to Roman numeral 3. So I'm going to erase all this and we'll go to the creation of Adam and Eve. Okay. So now, to me, this is also one of those fascinating episodes. And what makes it fascinating is that it shows you how very personal and intimate God is and intends to be with us and with every human being. All right, so I won't read what you have in the notes there because you can read it, but it starts in Genesis 1:26 when God said, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness, and let him rule over the fishes, sea, birds of the air, et cetera, et cetera." So when God created man, and now it is Adam now, and then Eve will be right after that, still on the same day, of course, so only hours apart. But when he created man, he did that differently than he did anything else in his creation, including the angels. I mean, we don't even know when he created the angels, by the way, sometime during this time, okay? But before he created man, there's suggestion that it was right at the beginning he created the angels too. So because there's a passage somewhere in Job or somewhere where it says about the angels witnessing creation. So like they were there after he started, okay? So that's not important for us. So when he created man, let me just try to explain it in a laying it out there, so picturesque sort of way. All right, so here we go. So imagine now you're one of the angels and you're watching God create things. And if you were created right there, right after the very beginning, now you've seen God starting to create things. And you're seeing a universe form within a week, right? I mean, a whole universe. And in one day, suddenly there's sun, moon, and stars. They weren't there a second ago, now they are. Okay, it's like, boom, there it is. So you're seeing God, yeah.
What day were the angels created on?
Well, that's what I'm saying. We don't know, but we think it may have been at the beginning. Yeah, okay, right. So near the beginning, because they're witnessing it. All right, so you're one of the angels, you're watching this, and you're seeing God, and you're just obviously amazed by how he's able to do so much and so beautifully and majestically, powerfully, and immediately. All right. So, but then it's suddenly like we get to day 6, and it's like there's a pause. He creates all these animals, and then there's this pause, and then you're one of the angels, and you're listening because God's talking to himself. Not like you may talk to yourself, because when God talks to himself, it's Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Okay. So he's talking among themselves. Okay? Because he says, let us make man in our image. So it's like suddenly God just stopped. It's like, okay, what's he doing? So now it's not like, I'm trying to say this reverently, it's not like watching that little kid with the tub of Play-Doh, but it is kind of like that. Because now he's doing something different. All right? So what God does is he takes part of his earthly creation, earth, and he starts to form it. Okay? So he shapes it. Okay? And he shapes it into something that, if you look around the creation, there's nothing else like it. I mean, we're not evolved from monkeys or anything like that. So there's nothing else like it. But this is what's so cool about it. So as you're watching this, and obviously this has happened really fast, but it's like, first of all, God has actually, and I know he doesn't have physical hands, but you kind of have to visualize, anthropomorphize him, so make him look like a man. He gets his hands dirty. Before he just spoke. You know, when you speak, there's a separation kind of, right? I mean, you're not right at me when I'm speaking, okay? But now he gets his hands down in the dirt, and he starts, not that it's bad, because dirt is good, okay, everything's good, but he gets in there and he starts shaping it. And he shapes it, okay? So now you imagine this. So he shapes this figure, okay? And it's like, if you've ever seen a sculptor work with clay, because they can do it pretty fast, you see this starts from nothing and it starts taking shape, right? But now as you look at this, so let's say he does this and he kind of just steps back and looks at it, okay? He didn't literally do that, but so in our illustration he steps back to look at it. And as he does, what are you seeing? At that moment, what are you seeing as he just shaped it and all that? Literally, what are you seeing? Huh? A body, but really, what is it? It's a pile of dirt, just been shaped. It's a pile, just like if you look at a good statue or something, it looks lifelike, right? But there's nothing to it. It's just metal or clay or whatever. Okay, it's just in this case, it's a pile of dirt. All right. And then what does the text say in Genesis 2:7? It says, "And God breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living being." All right, it's a very intimate thing. So, I mean, you kind of can look at it this way. It says breathe into his nostrils, but because that's when they think of, in Hebrew way of thinking, you breathe through your nose, not through your mouth. You speak with your mouth, you breathe through your nose. So, but it's, if you want to be more intimate about it, it's the first kiss of life. He does CPR, but what he does is he, like face to face, he goes to this pile of dirt and he breathes. And what happens? Suddenly, it's not a pile of dirt. Now, the key is, what is it now? It's a human being made in God's image. Nothing else was made in God's image. None of the animals you're made for more than. You were made for more because God made you in his image. His image is that which is perfect, righteous. I think it's hard to explain what that all is, but perfect, righteous, and eternal. Okay, and glorious is coming later. But the way I always just do it to make it an easy way to remember is I just call it rib, perfectly righteous. Innocent. We talked about this in one of the other lessons. Righteous, innocent. Oops, that's already an I. Innocent. So I'll make that a capital. And blessed. All right, so that's what he does. He creates this man, and now suddenly what was a pile of dirt from that very moment has become a living being that will never cease to exist. Because you know Adam and Eve is still Adam is still existing, and of course Eve too, but you know he's still existing. From the moment God breathed life into that pile of dirt, that became a living human being, and it never stops existing. I mean, you know, so if you commit suicide, you don't stop. You continue to exist. So think about that. From the moment God creates that life, an eternal life has started. Okay, and so a moment of conception for us is how God does it now. But when that conception happens, that life has started. And it's a life that's so different than a beast. So are you a man or a beast? Are you created just to graze upon what God has created on earth and survive that way and satisfy your basic natural urges and desires? Is that all you're made for? Or have you been made for another purpose? You've been made in the image of God so that you can enjoy God and the blessings that God has to give. So it's so much more than just saying, all I want from Jesus, or all I want from God is to just get me through another day. It's like, no, God made you for something so much more. He made you an eternal being, and he wants to bestow his eternal glories and blessings upon you for eternity. That's his desire. And his desire was never for man and Eve, Adam and Eve, the man and woman, to fall into sin. It was never his intention for that. So his intention was, I want to show love to somebody. And I want to show my love, my holy, awesome, limitless love to somebody. And so I create Adam and Eve. And then they will have kids, and they will have kids and all that. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and that is the key. So it is in Genesis 1 where it says, let us make man. It's not let me, it's let us. And this is why, Christians have always said, see, the Old Testament believers, if they were true believers, did not believe in just God as he is one being, but not just one person. Okay, so they were monotheistic. I mean, there's one God, but the one God is more than one person. Okay, because that's the let us make man in our image. Okay, and even that is a little bit off the subject, but when in Deuteronomy it says the big statement that Jews always make, hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Okay, that's their big statement, and apparently the way it's phrased with Hebrew is the word for one is echad, and what it is, it's one, but it's like a compound. So that's why we get the Trinity. So it's like an illustration would be, we are one nation, but we're 50 states that make up one nation. So the word for God, and there, the hero Israel, Lord, our God, the Lord is one. It's saying he's one, but he's not just one. He's more made up to one. Okay, into one. Okay, so that's their concept. That's so it's stated there. All right, so what you have here then is again this idea that God created man in such a special way that he says, I want to lavish upon you my blessings. And so it's really sad to see humanity get to the point where they say, no, I really don't care about any of that stuff. All I want to know is, can I get by today? And I want more money today, or I want more whatever gives me pleasure today. That's all I care about, just that. And you're just a beast then. That's all that a beast wants. Okay? And yet God says, I have so much for you. And so when you go back to the very beginning of the Bible and we go back to creation itself, you see why Christianity is so wonderful as opposed to obviously evolution, which says, again, you weren't even meant to be. No one ever wanted you. You just happened to come together as a random bonding of chemicals, and now you exist, and no one wants you. This one says, no, the one who wants you is the one not just who created you, but the one who is the creator of everything, and the one who's absolutely perfect and loving and good, and he wants you. And so realize that's what we're made for. We're made for so much more than just our physical existence. And so that's the idea too, that when he creates man in his image, what he's done now is he doesn't just make a physical body, he breathes his soul. He breathed into man his spirit, and man became a living being. So we are not just body, we are body and soul and spirit. So we are so much more than just an animal. And when we recognize that, we truly celebrate what God has done for us, and we rejoice in the fact that he loves us so incredibly much. Now, what we do now, that's the creation part, and I don't need to spend time. You know about the creation of Eve, and that Adam was alone, and so he made Eve. So everything was said there is really meant to apply to both Adam and Eve, even though Eve was not made from the dust of the ground. She was made from a rib of Adam, but it's really the same concept, and it's the same way for everybody. And that's why in your notes there I had Psalm 139, which is a very familiar passage where it says, you knit me together in my mother's womb, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. And so there's no accident. Okay, that's the idea, and that's why that picture that I had him draw, if you have the notes there, I had people look in all kinds of different ways and look kind of goofy and weird. And so the idea behind that is that if you truly understand the doctrine of creation and specifically the doctrine of creation of humanity, you can never be in any way discriminatory. Because God created every single human being with the same intense and personal desire as he has you. So everyone. So I know we naturally become discriminatory regarding various things when you look at people, but you can't, okay? Because you're insulting the Creator when you do that. Okay, now people do abuse what God has created, but just the mere life itself that was created by God is to be honored and respected, okay, and not ever discriminated against. Right, so now that was the creation. So now we get to the Roman numeral 4 here, and we call it preservation. Okay, and again, this is all review. You all know this, but it's just worth saying again, is that When God created everything at the very beginning, did he then just step back and say, you're on your own from now on? Well, of course not. I mean, because he's still creating everybody all the time. But the idea here, and Paul mentions it here in Acts 17:28, it says that in him we live and move and have our being. And so what we need to understand with the preservation here is, I won't go to the deism idea there, it's already there, but the idea of the preservation is that our lives every day are dependent upon God. And that's why when you get up every day, there's that wonderful passage in Lamentations where it says, your mercies are new every morning, great is your faithfulness. Or your compassions never fail, your mercies are new every morning, great is your faithfulness. So every day, you can kind of, start quoting a bunch of passages, I guess, and you can go to the Psalm 118 passage and say, every day you can wake up in the morning and say, this is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Not let us grumble and complain about it, but let's rejoice. Why do we rejoice? Because his mercies are new again today, and his faithfulness brought this day about, and it's all expression of his compassion. Now, that doesn't mean everything is going to happen great during the day, because we still live in a sinful world, but the idea is that God is always, every second of every day, monitoring creation and doing it with our lives in mind. Now, again, because of sin, it doesn't work the way we would like it to work, but the fact that we aren't condemned to hell already shows that God is a very patient and compassionate God, and he's patiently taking care of us. And so every day, if you can approach the day not in a negative, pessimistic sort of way, but if you naturally are that kind of a person, maybe you can kind of think of it differently now. Look at it as that this is the day the Lord has made. It doesn't just happen by itself. The Lord makes this day, and he makes it because he wants to shower his love upon you. And he'll do it in his own way. We often miss those ways, but he doesn't. And if you start looking for the positive in each day and all he's done, you'll have reason to rejoice every day. All right, so that's what we draw comfort from and assurance for living each day, is knowing that every day is here because God gave it. And I'm here because God gave me life, and that's it. The moment God says it's over, you're done. You can't extend your life 1 second longer than what God has intended. So the fact that you are alive is because God wants you alive. So that's the idea. You all have a purpose. Then that leads to the next point. We always have a purpose. No, as long as you have breath, you have a purpose. Okay? We call this stewardship here. Okay? So what we look at here is this idea that now that we live in a physical world, we are physical beings, and we God has placed us in control over physical creation. It's like he still has a purpose for us. And that purpose is to, already from the beginning with Adam and Eve, they were to till the garden, take care of it. They were to rule over creation. They were to, govern the animals. And they were responsible for taking care of creation. All right? And now we call this stewardship. And so my cute way of saying this, of course, it says the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, the world and all who live in it, in Psalm 24:1. And that's what it's getting at. Everything that exists is owned by God, but he entrusts it to us. Each of us have something that we're responsible for. We have not the same amount. It's not a communistic sort of system. God has decided what you get and what you don't get. But he has given you charge over something. And he says, I'm not just going to pamper you and just, you just lay there and I take care of everything. I have something for you to do. And even for eternity, we have glorious work we get to do forever. And it won't be burdensome and tiresome. It'll be wonderful work. Okay? But he has made us stewards, or he gives us responsibility to take care of things. So my kind of cute way of explaining this is to use the Beverly Hillbillies as the example. Okay? So you guys all remember watching Beverly Hillbillies? You need to go back and watch it. I'm realizing this younger generation doesn't even know what I'm talking about when I say this anymore. I mean, my own kids don't even know who Leave It to Beaver. was. I was like, seriously? Okay. And last week talked about Roger Ramjet, right? You know, and Underdog and all that. So they don't even know who Beverly Hillbillies are anymore. Okay, but have you watched Beverly Hillbillies? Okay, here's the story. Okay, if you still go back to the very beginning of Beverly Hillbillies, all right? So he gets this, he gets the oil. Okay, so I'll cut to where we need to go. So they're moving to Beverly Hills, okay, from the Ozarks. Here, they live in a log cabin here in the Ozarks. And they move to Beverly Hills. So they get to this big giant mansion where they're told to go. When they get to the door, okay, they knock on the door, and this well-dressed gentleman comes to the door. And of course, Jed says, doggies, okay? I'm Jed Clampett, okay? And so I don't know what he says, but you have to look at the first episode in it. Okay, so, and the man says, I'm the butler. I'll just reduce it to what we need to know. I'm the butler. He said, well, Mr. Butler, this is a nice place you have here. And then the upstairs maid comes down. When she hears the door, she comes down, and she says she's the maid. I'm not even say she's the upstairs maid, okay? But what do the Clampetts think they are? Yeah, they own the house, right? But the butler's trying to say, no, I'm just the butler. And of course, I never know what that means, okay, until later. But that's the idea. Because what is the butler saying? He says, yes, I have a really nice suit on, and there's a chauffeur, but let's say there's no chauffeur, and I get to drive that really nice car. I live in this mansion. I eat the nice food of this mansion. I don't get pork and beans. I get to enjoy that, but I own nothing. I don't even own a button on my suit. The suit's given to me as a responsibility for me. And the maid's the same way, right? The gardener would be the same way. And, I don't own any of this, but I'm responsible for taking care of this. And I get to enjoy it while I'm responsible for taking care of it. But I'm responsible for taking care of it. That's us. We're the butlers and the maids, or whatever position you want to call it, but that's who we are in one sense. Now, in another sense, we own it all because we're children of God, but in this sense, we are the stewards whom God has placed in charge of all of creation. So he says, it's yours to enjoy, and it's yours to use, but not for your own selfish pleasures. You use it the way I have created it to be used, and you use it now in a fallen world. You use it to benefit other people and to help other people in their needs. So we are stewards of creation, and we have a responsibility then to use what he has created for his purposes. Okay, and now this isn't just talking about church offerings, but that also includes then recognizing that we have a responsibility to continue to support the work. That's the most important work of all, which is the church work of the church, which isn't just obviously through offerings. It's through our physical work and labor that we do. But we have that responsibility because God has placed us in that position. So that's just what stewardship is. I kind of already knew that, but you just had to have that in the lesson somewhere. And so that's what that's about. So we have that job to do, and we are to do that. All right? So that's really all I have on creation. Like I said, I was going to do this really more as devotional because there's not really, we'll do angels now because I want to leave time. I got 10 minutes to do the angels. So if we want to do a more intense study of angels at some other point, we'll definitely do that. But right now, I'll just give you a real quick overview of angels. Okay, so when we talk about angels, the Bible does say quite a bit about angels, and yet it still leaves us wondering a lot about angels as well. All right, so you got a bunch of Bible verses there in the notes, and I won't be able to go through all of them, but I don't know, what ones do I want to go through? Let's just look at it this way. What do angels do? Okay? What do angels do? They do several things. They are what? They relay messages, because actually the word for angel can be translated messenger. Okay? So they relay messages. They are God's messengers, and often they do that when they are ministering to people. They convey a message to people. And we got many examples of that in Scripture. Okay? So they do that. What else do angels do? I mean, we could look it up. Let's see how much you know. All right. What do we call them? Our guardian angels. All right. Yours is slacking. All right. No, you're working overtime. Yours is okay. Okay, the word guardian angel is basically based upon he gives his angels command to guard over us and watch over us. Okay, now it's always fun when I hear other people on the radio talk about that. They go on and on and say, do we really have guardian angels? It's like, no, we really don't, but we do. It's like, okay, yeah, we do. Okay, but it doesn't literally mean that that we know that we have one angel responsible for us. We could have a dozen angels responsible for us, or one angel could be responsible for more than one person too. You know, we just don't know. But we do have angels that watch out over us. Okay. She needs an army of them. Exactly, right? Okay. They're not visible to us. The angels aren't.
They aren't. I was saying that back when I was working. Someone brought a picture in where I was working. Buried a baby up on a hill in a cemetery at the top of the hill, and there was a big cloud up there, and the picture, and there was an angel in the cloud.
Okay. Well, okay. Now, it doesn't mean they can't appear.